quizá puede ser, quedan 15 minutos y hay alguna pregunta, quizás. Yo creo que sí, Sibylle.
Mm-hmm.
Si las personas tienen alguna duda.
Since we have 15 minutes, Norma is saying that we could maybe see whether people have some questions.
Sure.
So, aquí pueden repetir el nombre del libro de niños sobre reuso. Okay. Monica, they're asking here in the chat whether you could just repeat the name of that book that your student made in Nicaragua on the garbage fairy tale.
What is it called? I think I might have to send that to you. If I was in my office, I could pull it off the shelf.
Right.
What is it called? It's Marco Mateo sees Mateo. I don't have it in my mind right here, right now, but it's very sweet. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have another question about whether you could talk a little bit more about the totem animal.
The totem animal. Well, one of the references that Richard used was from the Sun Bear's medicine wheel, and where there's different animals and there's different structures. So a totem animal is what, you would connect to. And you might, you may have in some of your own cultures different ways that you connect with different animals, or you have different experiences. I had a friend just last night talking about having seen a coyote. It was a significant time, and suddenly there was a coyote in the middle of the road and looking at him. And just before, they had been sitting down in a park, and an enormous bear had come down, not just about 20 feet away. And, you have these very powerful experiences with an animal that might then become a totem animal. But there are also the other places where I showed you some of the pictures of what he built with this large stone medicine wheel. And in the creation of that, he had been doing some work with probation officers. And he had a young adolescent boy that had come out to work and help rake and to make the medicine wheel there. And the boy said, had been working for a few hours out in the sun with him. And then at one point said that his grandmother had told him to ask Richard what his totem animal was. And Richard asked him, he was climbing up on a particular rock. And then Richard asked him, well, what his birthday was. And he did the more classic way of looking at it as to what the basing it from his birthday, similar to what we do in astrology in that way. And he said, your totem animal is the woodpecker. He's the musician of the woods. And this young boy, who was a drummer, was thrilled beyond belief that was his totem animal, that this is what, that yes, he should be involved in his music and his drumming. And he was just thrilled. And he went on working with Rick for about 4 hours. And then when he had to go and he was getting in the car, he came back and gave him a huge hug saying, this has been the best day of my life, best day ever. And he went back and doing that. And so one of the things that, you saw those pictures there of the opening, in the whole ceremonial day, which had food and feasting and presents and gifting, all at the end of this time, in the tradition, in the Klapkich tradition, they have a tradition that's called witnessing. So it's not like it's written and recorded down, but witnesses speak to what has happened, what it means, and what they are going to do. And the first witness was the Grand Chief of his nation, who spoke about the significance of it. And the second witness was from the ministry, from the government ministry of Child and Health, and she spoke to what it meant. The third witness was from the Health Authority, and they spoke to what they were going to do and support around healing and for what it meant for Richard to do this. And they had about 250 people there at this ceremony. They had ministers and spiritual leaders and health and the paramedics and the RCMP and the early childhood and the social workers and Indigenous. I mean, it was huge. And the fourth witness he called, and I didn't know, well, I knew a few days before, he said, would I be a witness? I didn't know what this meant. So as the fourth witness, I was to speak because it was working with me where this whole genesis of this idea came from, and that we developed from that point. Well, as a witness, I said, well, I think it's very important that we are making contemporary stone circles, that we're bringing it alive, the traditions alive in the present, not just older stones that have been known that we go and visit, that we're making new histories, and that's very important. And one of the things I said is that I will speak about this. I will tell the story of what this means. And so what I am doing right now is I am witnessing. I am carrying forward what I committed to at that point. And so after that, I, set up for him to speak in London. We went to Kansas City to the American conference. I've supported taking the story out so that more people get to hear what is happening, that we share it.
Oh, thank you so much, Monica. Yes. I think it's arriving in our hearts, what you're sharing. They're asking about that documentary precisely about Richard, right? So
the Not Broken.
Yes, Not Broken. So that's what it's called. Yeah, Not Broken. There's an English question, so I don't have to translate. How do you understand and approach the term and concept of cultural appropriation regarding the indigenous art and its uses in different parts of the world? That's a big question.
That's a very big question and a very important question. We should never take somebody's other cultural art and use it. It's on the same basis that you have, I'm sure, been trained, that you do not take your client's art and promote or show it without their due respect, and attributing it, and that without their permission. We don't take Indigenous art out into the world, and we shouldn't. There are, within Indigenous cultures, there are sacred teachings that they hold, that they don't teach out into the community. And there are more and more of the awareness that the Indigenous worldview has a tremendous amount to contribute to our understanding and changing our worldview in the world. And one of the things that I feel very deeply is a commitment to the land and the land-based healing approach and our relationship to the land. And it is not only Indigenous people, but also one of the Catholic theologians, Sally McFay, who speaks about how we need to have a subject to subject relationship to nature, not a subject to object. And that's what the Indigenous perspective is, that we need to be treating it as alive, and we need to be working to healing in the land-based connection. But there is a lot of difference, I would say, as there is a lot of hurt and anger and pain. You know, we still have tremendous amount of problems on, you know, that where there is not clean water, where the land has been taken away, where they're not able to live their life as it has been. And that there is a lot of work that needs to be done in all of those areas, but it is our role, or my role, to support those changes and transformations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But cultural appropriation, we cannot go and take it on for our own self. What I believe you will find, if you're interested in the medicine wheel, you know, to understand those beliefs and concepts, absolutely understand those beliefs and concepts. But I think that you will probably find, if you look deeply in your own traditions and your own cultural heritage, you will find commonalities that you can connect and attribute. You know, because my heritage is a Celtic more, and I was absolutely amazed when I read kind of a prayer to the East that could have been written by an Indigenous prayer to the East of new beginnings, because a lot of it is based on the cycle. And what happens within metaphor, within the Indigenous worldview, is that their language is metaphoric in nature. It's absolutely, everything is spiritual and enlivened, and it's all very metaphoric, which is why the art therapy process, and you at Metaphora, and have emphasized and taken the word of metaphor. Metaphor is absolutely intrinsic to the way we work. Every single one of my Indigenous students that come in to do art therapy come in, and it's like, you know, ducks to water. Their language is metaphoric in nature. And so it is through understanding and pushing those boundaries and limits of metaphor that we, as art therapists, can contribute so much to healing in this way, that it is in a good way. Because the challenge that comes up is that if you come as a therapist and impose a different worldview on your clients, you are colonizing and imposing something. You need absolutely to understand and work with their worldview, so that they can find their understanding and significance and create their way through in that. So it is in many ways rooted in that social constructivist perspective, you know, around what are the worldviews that you're coming in with.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, am I rambling off and trying to, I feel like I'm on this kind of, I want to download, I have so little time.
I could just listen to you going on and on, Monica. I think all of us could. It's wonderful to listen to you. I'm, you know, just working culturally sensitively aware, and it is something that all training courses need to put a lot of emphasis on, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is incredibly important in this day and age to be doing this kind of work, because, you know, you may not have you may have different Indigenous situations. I know you have the migrants. I know you have refugees. You need to be working culturally. Everybody does. It's happening everywhere. And we need to be so much more welcoming and giving space for understanding of that, instead of defining and excluding. You know, the world is in an incredible state of crises with all of these huge, you know, not only the pandemic, the mental health pandemic, the social justice and rights, the environmental crises that we're in, and the economic, but it is, we absolutely need to be, we are so interdependent. We need to be honoring all the cultures and the gifts that they bring with it. As soon as we make those boundaries, you are not at the same or other level. We are part of the problem. As soon as we do that, as soon as we make bias and prejudice, we are part of the problem. And holding a racist perspective. And it is shocking to sort of suddenly realize that how many little ways that our values might actually become or could be considered racist, which is where with the working with Anna with our uncomfortable workshop, she's always waking me up to, oh, well, that's where that is, you know, and there's just so many things. Sorry, I'm rambling on.
Well, becoming aware of this kind of background that we bring into therapy is very important, to become aware of our own prejudices, of our own things that we assume, our own assumptions and so forth. There's a couple of questions still here talking precisely about the cultural humility, asking whether there would be also other kind of characteristics within within research, within indigenous research. Is there anything else that just kind of is particular to indigenous research beyond cultural humility?
Very much, you know, informed consent, very much about, is it of value to the community? You know, that who is the research for? If we're not working for the community to promote better healing and better things in the community, we're probably not doing right or good or relevant research. So it is about being, to me, this comes back to that place of being responsive, being responsive to the need that's there, rather than defining it from outside. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. There's a comment of one of the participants being from indigenous Brazilian descent, and they're very much so enjoying this intercultural work. Another comment here saying, you know, one moment in Spanish. Somebody's asking whether you're coming from the expressive therapies, because she was missing the beginning introduction. I
am trained as an art therapist, but I would say that we very much include, you know, poetry, music, dance, and, you know, when we're studying in art therapy history, it very much has to start with symbolic healing. What we're doing is symbolic healing, and that has been done since time immemorial within indigenous cultures around the world. And I am delighted to hear from other indigenous art therapists. There are some great articles in the Canadian Art Therapy Association journals that are available online on some of these topics if you're interested. There are some great resources now out in indigenous research methodologies around the importance of storytelling and, you know, and what the history has been. Yeah, there's lots of resources out there. It's been, I am delighted that you're interested in this topic, and I hope that I've been able to at least spark a seed, inspire you to continue your exploration and finding other thoughts and resources. I know that for me, that's certainly during this pandemic time, it's been an ongoing process of being you know, inspired by other people and what the work that they are doing. There's you know, one of the other ideas that I'm really liking to explore further are the people that are talking about liberation psychology. And Mary Watkins, who's an art therapist from California, she's now written on mutual accompaniment and how we need to be accompanying people rather than kind of being the hierarchical therapist, in that structure, and that we need to be creating more cultural commons. And the other piece that I think that is actually fundamental, that we bring a lot into our teaching here at the Kootenai Art Therapy Institute, is the place of environmental learning and situating ourselves in place and nature. And Mitchell Tomashow's new book on To Know the World, what he's talking about is the importance of teaching improvisational excellence. And I just love that. Improvisational excellence and perceptual relativity. And that's, as art therapists, we're always doing that. You know, we want to be able to improvise, to be able to speak to shift and to change. And then we also need to see things in terms of the whole cycle. And, you know, and that it's, you know, the sun and the rain and what's happening with the moon and the stars and all of it, you know, we need to be situating ourselves in the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, actually, I mean, I've learned when I was with you in Canada about how much you're developing and working with eco art therapy, and so, you know, it's another fascinating area that I would love you to talk about, and that we all think, I think here in Europe very much so still learning about. It is gaining more and more interest, but it's still not a very developed area. And that's something that you're much further along already, and that you are gaining a lot of experiencing in, which would be fascinating to also learn more about, as well as your new book, you know, on art therapy and on dreams, on dream work, right, in art therapy, which I can't wait to kind of get a hold of and discover. So another topic, another wonderful topic that we could probably talk about a lot.
And another piece that you might, I don't know if, you know, how many of you are working through Zoom, through the platform for providing therapy. But if you remember, Sibylle, I had the communication games, the therapeutic communication games. Well, we now have digital versions. They're available online, and we have them, the ones that are digital, they translate into English, French, Spanish, Hebrew, Russian, and maybe even Portuguese so far. So yeah, if people are interested in that, that's also there.
Maybe we could write these references down. I think somebody's actually asking for these references, so maybe
I'll put it here in the chat.
Right.
So I'll give you the website for that.
Mm-hmm.
Auxilium Horizons. That's for digital games, and I'm happy to, you know, present or show and how they work and stuff, what we do with that. What other references did you want?
Auxilium were great. Somebody was asking about, not so sure. Somebody's asking, García, you're asking about references. Not so sure exactly what you mean.
Research references on this, some of this. Let me see if I can, I've got some. Wait a second. Not sure if I've got it easily here. I could give books, but
Si no, lo que podemos hacer es que nos los hagas llegar por mail, Mónica, y yo se los envío. Yo los envío.
So maybe you could send these references per email, and then Norma can. So García was asking about the reference on the mutual accompaniment that you were just mentioning. Yes.
Y ya son 10 minutos después de la hora. Me sabe mal, pero el tiempo de Mónica.
And about perceptual relativity. Was it about the to know the world? I don't know if it was inside of that.
To know the world. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Bueno, quizá tendríamos que ir cerrando, Sibylle.
Okay, Monica just shared. So, right. So we're wrapping here up. Mary Watkins wrote Mary Watkins. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to wrap up. Oh, Monica, this was such a pleasure, and I'm sure we could just all would want to spend the rest of the day with you. But still very grateful that you made time to be with us on this Monday, early morning for you, and very grateful. Thank you so much. I think we all leave the session inspired and fulfilled, and I think it all kind of touched us in many ways, and well, hopefully will be this kind of sparks us just to keep on learning more and more about working in these ways. I don't know, Norma, would you like to say something?
Sí, yo también darle las gracias a las dos porque ha sido una entrevista que parecía más bien una charla entre vosotras. Mónica, gracias por recordarnos que tenemos que estar como muy atentas a la sensibilidad de la persona con la que estamos y a recordarnos que tenemos que cuidar todas las relaciones.
Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you for reminding us to work sensitively and relationally aware. And she's expressing her gratitude to you.
Thank you very much. I think one of the biggest things in all this work is that we have to check in and know ourselves, and come to each other with a place of not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
To know yourself, but not to know, and to be open to the other. So I am delighted. It's been wonderful to see all of you. My biggest regret is that I don't actually get to see you in live time and to hear from you, because within an Indigenous perspective, the talking circle is probably one of the most important ways of working and teaching, and that I teach via the circle all the time, which we would be going around and hearing from each of you, because I certainly don't pertain to know all of this. This is, I'm sure that each of you would contribute a tremendous amount of insight and awareness to the whole question. So that is my regret, that I don't get to hear your voices.
Yes. Yeah, I think we could all kind of relate to that. At the same time, we're grateful that it is still possible to connect despite the distances. And hope to see you soon again in some other format.
Yes, love to.
Yes. Okay, Norma. Nos despedimos.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So
Wishing.
if we put our hands up, you know what? If you put your hands up on the screens, you can connect to each other sideways.
Right.
Bring them out to the edge, and you're connecting to everybody there. There we are. Now our hands forwards, and whoa, so great. To the top and the bottom of the screens, there we are.
Yes.
We can do lots still here on the screen. So
That's
thank you.
right. Thank you so much. Wishing everyone a good rest of the day.
Gracias.
Gracias a todas, todos. Ciao. Bye bye.
Chao. Oh, qué bien.
Ah, bueno.
Felicidades, felicidades, me voy ya.
Así.
Chao, Rosa.
Chao, Rosa.
Besos.
Adiós.
Beso.
Ya.
Ah, Richard, estás ahí.
Ay, mira, qué bien. En la misma casa.
Richard es mi vecino.
Richard is Norma's neighbor. So he was at her house.
Y amigos de hace
Nice.
20 años.
Oh, friends since 20 years.
Lovely.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Richard. Gracias. And well, this was a lot of food for thought, a lot of inspiration. I just felt like oxygen, refreshment, nutrition.
Sí,
Yeah.
a lot, sí.
Mhm. So Monica, there's so much we could still share, and hopefully
Yes.
we'll find ways of keeping, keeping
Yes.
connected. So
Absolutely. I'm delighted to see you and do that, and wish you were here.
I know I'll find a way to come see you at some point.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
well, big
I
hug
will-
to everyone.
Muchas gracias, Mónica. Ha sido precioso.
Gracias.
Sí, sí.
yeah,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
Monica. Iglis
Okay.
expressing. And big hug to
Yeah.
you and to everyone. Besos, chicas.
Yeah.
Gracias,
Thank you.
Sibylle. Gracias, Richard.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye.
Y esperemos que no sea la última con Mónica.
Sí.
Bueno, qué guay, gracias, chicas, súper bien. Ha salido
Gracias.
Muy bonito.
muy
Sí.
bonito.
Sí, mucho. Y bueno, ella pues también ya se ve